Well, our next guest is a significant historical figure, in my opinion. I think future historians will look back on him in the same breath as Gandhi and Martin Luther King and others. And I'm referring to Chris Elston, Billboard Chris. Now, Billboard Chris first came on this show several years ago. He was fighting armed simply with the truth and his personal conviction. And that was it. This is a man who has spent hours and hours simply standing on street corners with a billboard around him, questioning the transgender ideology. Now, when Chris first came on this show, it was like, ooh, transgender, how dare anyone question transgenderism? You know, what a shocking thing to do. Now, several years on, the victory after victory after victory that Billboard Chris has won is astonishing. In America, for example, they've completely thrown out the whole transgender ideology. We saw last week Leah Thomas, the swimmer, the male swimmer who'd been taking all the female medals. That's all over. That's being reversed. Here in Australia, Billboard Chris, it's a complicated story. We have gone through it before, but Billboard Chris simply questioned Australia's choice of a transgender individual to represent Australia at the World Health Organization. And Billboard Chris simply showed this person's own social media posts about bondage, about drug usage in sex, and so on and so forth, to highlight what Billboard Chris saw as an individual who may not be the best choice for that role. He was slammed by the eSafety commissioner that we were talking about earlier, this Julie Inman Grant, whose censorship regime, she tried to have Chris's tweet taken down by Twitter, by X. Elon Musk and Billboard Chris took the Australian government to court, and they won. Billboard Chris, great to have you, as always, on Outsiders, where you belong. You were one of the original Outsiders, mate. Now, you were right there. You're inside. You've got photos of you and Donald Trump. You're one of the great figures, in my opinion, of modern history. You're armed with the truth. You're armed with conviction, and you've moved mountains, Chris. How did you do it?
Well, your words are much too kind, but all I've done is been persistent. I have conversations out in the real world, outside of our online echo chambers. I think it's still important to get back to our roots as human beings and talk to each other one-on-one. And I just haven't stopped, and it's been almost 5 years, and I'm sure I'll probably be at this for the next 20, but you're right, we are getting win after win all across the globe. 27 states have now legislated a stop to this child abuse in the US. We have systematic reviews from Finland, Sweden, England, and the US now showing there's no evidence, of course, to give kids puberty-blocking drugs, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries. Because when it comes right down to it, this ideology is teaching our children that because they're a bit different, they're quirky, inevitably, these children all have some other mental health comorbidity. Autism is extremely prevalent. A lot of them have been sexually abused. But just because kids are uncomfortable or are having a difficult time, we're now telling them they were born wrong and need to change their bodies. And that's child abuse. So this is instinctively known by virtually everyone out there. But you're right, people were even afraid to say the word transgender. We've broken through that. There is some conversation needed to be had on this issue because it can get a little complicated. But one conversation at a time, one state and country at a time, we're going to put an end to this total madness.
Freya.
Yeah, well, I think the Queensland government here has said they will pause the use of puberty blockers for under 18s, but it's just a pause. Our federal government is undertaking a review, but we're not supposed to see that review until, I think it's mid-2026. What should Australia be doing now to protect children? Because we seem to be lagging behind the rest of the world.
Yeah, you're right up there with Canada. Honestly, listening to your other conversations today, I thought I was watching a Canadian news program. But
that bad, eh?
we need to reach the people first. It's always the people first. The politicians don't want to talk about it. The Republican politicians in Congress didn't want to talk about this just 3 years ago. Then it became the #1 issue affecting swing voters in the presidential election. And so it's the same exact battle plan. We just need to keep reaching the people. And then eventually the politicians listen, because the one thing they fear the most is not getting reelected. So when we make this a political issue and moms and dads speak up, they'll start listening. And I have met with about 20 different MPs and senators in Australia, even one from the Green Party, and they were all extremely supportive. So we're getting it out there. It's just a matter of time until we stop this.
But this is an 80-20 issue. I'd argue it's a 90 teen issue at its core. And yet the trans movement has such incredible power and influence, disproportionate power. Why do you think that is? How do you think they have managed to have this incredible power amongst politicians, the activist class, academia, and in the corporate world now? You look at the programs the corporates are running to try to appease this movement. It's astonishing.
There's a lot of money behind this. And really, this really goes back to the 60s with the sexual revolution. And it's been one revolutionary idea after another by the left. And I always say they don't want to have a revolution. They want to be in a perpetual state of revolution. And so really, when gay rights were won all across the West around 2010, 2015, the next objective for all of these NGOs and all of these leftist governments who feed their money into these NGOs, billions of dollars, it became trans rights. And they've been successful in conflating trans with gay. These two things are very different. Gay is same-sex attraction. This is a denial of reality itself. This is a quasi-religious movement teaching that we all have a gender identity. And sometimes our gender identity is different than our sex. Well, what is a gender identity? I've asked this question thousands of times and nobody can tell me. And I think it's important to expose that because ultimately all this does is come down to stereotypes. If a girl likes boy toys, boy clothes, boy sports, she's not a boy. She's a beautiful girl. We need to get back to reality. There's no such thing as a transgender child.